Okay, settle in because you are logged in for a deep dive that's going to take us way further east than your last takeout order.
Mm-hmm.
We are plunging right into the world of Chinese joss paper and these paper offerings.
Yeah, that stuff you sometimes see burning.
Exactly, those crispy, flammable things,
Hmm.
maybe doing that, fiery dance in Chinatown alleys.
Right.
But hold on, because there's this rumor, hotter than the flames apparently,
Yeah.
an annual profit of 100 million.
Wow. 100 million RMB.
That's the claim. And the supposed ground zero for this whole paper empire, a single village in Hebei called Mibiswang.
Okay, that's pretty wild. How something so, like, deeply tied to ancient Chinese tradition has managed to, well, paper its way across the globe, economically speaking.
Right.
That nine-figure profit claim is definitely the hook, and the idea it might all come down to one village, that kind of niche dominance.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, no, try to unpack that.
Totally. All right, let's break down the basics first, so nobody gets lost. We're talking about Mingbi.
Spirit money, ancestor money. Call it what you want, yeah. It's paper currency, basically, designed for one thing,
Mm-hmm.
burning.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is poof, it's like materializes for your ancestors or whoever in the spirit world. Afterlife cash withdrawals, I guess.
That's pretty much it. The core belief isn't that the afterlife is some empty space. It's seen as, a continuation of life here, just on another level.
Okay.
So the logic is, if you needed stuff here,
Right.
money, a house, your ancestors probably need it there too. Burning the paper is like the ultimate spiritual Venmo transaction.
Spiritual Venmo. I like that. Okay, then there's the other thing. Ye's paper offerings.
Right, and this isn't just money.
No way. Forget paper cranes. We're talking full-on paper replicas. Houses, fancy cars, phones, food.
Mansions, Maseratis, yeah, the latest gadgets.
And these also get burned to make sure Uncle Bob is living large in the hereafter. Some of these paper Lambos look better than my actual car, seriously.
Yeah, they can be incredibly detailed. It's actually a real testament to the craftsmanship involved. These aren't always just like cheap mass-produced things. Many require real skill.
Okay, so our mission today, for you listening, and you should definitely keep listening, is to really dive deep into this, well, kind of bizarrely specific export market.
Right.
We're going to sift through the economic tea leaves, explore the cultural roots, figure out how big this paper chase really is.
And why that one village seems to have it cornered.
Exactly. What's driving the demand overseas.
Mm.
And we need to sort the verifiable facts from the, let's just call them enthusiastic claims.
Absolutely. We want to give you the real story, cut through the noise.
Okay, so cultural roots. Let's rewind. Why burn paper for the dead? Where did this all start?
It goes way, way back, deeply rooted in ancestor veneration in Chinese culture.
Okay.
For thousands of years, there's been this fundamental belief that spirits of the deceased, well, they continue to exist, and they can actually influence the living.
Wow. So it's like filial piety, but like extending beyond death.
Exactly that. Filial piety, that respect and care for elders and ancestors, is absolutely central. It doesn't just stop when someone passes away.
So it's more than just a nice thought. It's fundamental.
Right.
They're not gone just somewhere else.
Pretty much. And that ties right into the idea that the afterlife mirrors our world. If you needed a roof, money, food here.
They need it there too. Got it.
Precisely. Hence the need for these, well, material resources in paper form.
And the burning part. Why the fire? Seems a bit dramatic.
Well, the burning itself is symbolic. It's seen as the transfer mechanism.
The delivery system.
Kind of, yeah. Fire and smoke are believed to carry the essence of those offerings up to the spiritual realm. There's an old saying, we treat the dead as if they were alive. That really sums it up.
Okay, treat the dead as if they were alive. Makes sense. So this isn't some new TikTok thing then. People have been doing this for ages.
Oh, absolutely, for ages. Historically, people actually buried real money and valuables with the dead.
Uh-oh. Sounds like asking for trouble.
It was. Grave robbing became a huge problem. So that led to using symbolic replicas instead. First, maybe pottery, lead, wood figures.
Right.
But then paper came along, its invention and widespread use, especially around the Wei Jin dynasty, that really cemented paper money as the go-to offering. Some historians even link it back to older Taoist rituals, like burning talismans.
Fascinating. Okay, so what kind of afterlife cash are we talking about? Is it like monopoly money for ghosts?
It's actually more complex than that. There's a whole hierarchy. You've got Jane gold and silver paper, often has metallic foil folded into old-style ingot shapes.
Okay.
Then there's ingark, or basically hell banknotes.
Hell banknotes, seriously.
Seriously. And these are wild. They look like modern money, but with like insane denominations, billions, trillions of dollars, often with figures like the Jade Emperor on them.
Who issues these?
They're supposedly issued by, get this, the Heaven and Earth Bank or the Underworld Bank.
The Underworld Bank. They probably have better customer service than my actual bank. The dedication to afterlife bureaucracy is kind of amazing.
Isn't it? And it gets even more specific. There's special paper, shojin, just for deities, then jin, more generally for ancestors or, like, lower spirits.
Wow.
And then, of course, the modern paper offerings, which are just hilarious sometimes. Yeah. Paper iPhones, paper Teslas, paper Gucci.
If it's trendy here, there's a paper version for the afterlife. Paper crypto next.
Wouldn't surprise me. So when does all this paper burning happen? Just funerals.
Good question.
Funerals are definitely key, but it's much broader. Several major festivals are big occasions. Qingming Festival Tomb Sweeping Day is huge for honoring ancestors.
Right, I've heard of that.
Then there's Zhongguan, the Ghost Festival, the Cold Clothes Festival too. Plus, people often burn offerings on ancestral birthdays or death anniversaries. And some businesses even burn joss paper regularly, for good luck.
So it's really woven into the fabric of the year, not just a one-off thing.
Definitely. And it's crucial to get the emotional side, too. It provides real comfort for people grieving. It's a tangible way to express loss, fulfill that filial duty.
Connect with family, process sorrow.
Exactly. It's a whole system of meaning and support, really.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. We actually put together a table summarizing the different types of Mingbi and Ziza, so you, the listener, can check that out for the details. Now, the big one, that or claim. 100 million RMB profit. Fact or fiction?
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Because when you actually dig for specifics, concrete proof for that number, just from joss paper exports, it's elusive.
Ah, so maybe more legend than verified fact.
It seems to be a widely repeated claim, but, not something we can definitively nail down with publicly available export data just for joss paper. However, but we do know the entire funeral industry based in Mibeshuang is huge. Reports mention billions of RMB annually for the village cluster. And China's whole funeral service market, that's apparently a trillion RMB level industry.
Whoa. Okay, so the overall sector is massive.
Absolutely massive. So while we can't confirm the 100 million just for paper exports, the context is this enormous market. There's definitely big money involved somewhere.
Right. The neighborhood's definitely profitable. Maybe just not all from shipping paper Gucci overseas.
Exactly. But this is where the export story gets kind of nuts. The price differences between what this stuff costs wholesale in China and what it sells for on, say, Amazon. It's just bonkers.
Bonkers how? Give us the juicy numbers.
Okay, check this out. On a site like 1688, a Chinese wholesale platform, right? You might get 300 sheets of Mingbi for like 5 RMB.
Okay, pretty cheap.
Now, hop over to Amazon. You might see 600 sheets, so double the quantity selling for nearly $18 US. Math. That's like roughly a 12x price increase per sheet.
12 times.
And that's not the wildest. We saw another example, 600 sheets for about 4 RMB wholesale, listed for 110 RMB on Amazon. That's, what, nearly 28 times the price.
28. Okay, that's staggering.
And one more, 80 sheets selling for almost $6 USD on Amazon. That worked out to something like 32 times the domestic wholesale price.
32 times. That's not just markup. That's some serious arbitrage happening. Someone somewhere is making bank.
You got it. So while we can't slap that exact 100 million RMB figure on exports alone, these insane price gaps strongly suggest it's a very lucrative business for someone down the line. We've got a table comparing these prices too if you want to see the numbers side by side.
Definitely need to see that. Okay, what about market share? The claims that China exports 90% of the world's joss paper, and Mibeshuang accounts for 90% of that.
Yeah, those are big claims, and they pop up in multiple reports. Pinpointing exact data is tough because, customs codes lump joss paper under broader categories like paper goods.
Right, the classification issue.
Exactly. But the fact these 90% figures are repeated so consistently suggests Mibeshuang's dominance in this specific niche is probably very real, or at least widely perceived to be.
And where is this stuff actually going?
We have confirmed reports mentioning Europe, Russia, the USA, Germany, and definitely Southeast Asia. The broader paper goods data shows big exports to the US, Vietnam, Australia, Malaysia, Japan. But again, isolating the Joss paper is the challenge.
So the paper trail leads overseas, for sure. And the fact that Mi Biswang folks were reportedly using Amazon like over 10 years ago, that says a lot.
It really does. They jumped on the e-commerce train early for global reach. And this ties back to who's making the money, right?
Yeah.
With those huge price differences, it seems very likely that a big chunk of the profit is captured by intermediaries.
The exporters, the Amazon sellers, the shipping companies.
Exactly, which might explain why you hear villagers in Mibeswang saying things like, the huge profits have nothing to do with me. They're focused on mass production, probably thinner wholesale margins.
They're the engine room churning out the goods, but maybe not seeing the full retail upside internationally. Makes sense. Okay, so Mi Biswang, this China's first funeral village, Hell's Wall Street. Sounds intense. Tell us more.
It really is the epicenter. Mibiswang village in Hebei province, now part of the Xiongnu area, actually. And yeah, those nicknames, China's first funeral village, underground financial center, Hell's Wall Street, they paint a picture.
It's like the Silicon Valley of the Afterlife supply chain.
Maybe. The scale is huge. Estimates for annual output value vary a lot. You see numbers from over 1 billion RMB up to tens of billions, even hints of hundreds of billions.
Quite a big range.
Probably depends on exactly what's being counted, just the village, the wider cluster, and what year the data is from. But bottom line, it's a massive industry concentrated right there.
And not just a few workshops, right? This is industrial.
Oh, definitely. Hundreds of businesses. One market street supposedly has over 500 shops, and the product variety is insane. Reports claim over 10,000 different types of items, basically anything you could possibly need for a funeral.
Wow. And lots of jobs.
Tens of thousands employed in the industry, yeah. In the village and the surrounding area.
And this isn't new. It has history.
Deep roots. Back to the Qing dynasty. They started out making those paper models of chariots and figures for worship rituals.
Okay.
And over time, they just adapted and expanded. And like we said, they reportedly dominate the domestic funeral supply market, near 90%. And that recurring claim of 90% of China's Joss paper exports originating there.
So yeah, if you're burning spirit money anywhere on Earth, odds are good it passed through Mi Biswang.
It's a remarkably concentrated supply chain. They're primarily a wholesale hub. Distributors come from all over China and apparently internationally to buy stock. They even have specific market days drawing buyers from different provinces.
And they jumped on Amazon early.
Right. That early move into e-commerce was key for global reach.
So they're not just stuck in the past, they're innovating too.
Some are, yeah, developing things like electronic wreaths, offering personalized paper offerings, catering to modern tastes. But it's interesting, the local view often seems to be quite down to earth. Reports suggest many residents just see it as a normal family business, something inherited. The whole idea of scandalous huge profits isn't necessarily how they frame it. Suggests their focus is maybe more on the production and wholesale side.
Volume over massive margins, perhaps.
Yeah.
Makes sense for a production hub. And that concentration you mentioned, it's a strength, but also a vulnerability.
Absolutely. If something disrupts Mi Biswang regulations, environmental issues, anything, the ripple effects on the global supply could be significant.
Like Japan relying on specific parts of China for coffins and tombstones.
Exactly, that kind of dependency. It highlights how interconnected things are. And Mi Biswang is this amazing mix, centuries of tradition going back to the Qing dynasty, combined with modern e-commerce, making paper iPhones alongside traditional ingots. We put together a table on Mi Biswang too, summarizing its industry.
Okay, Mi Biswang is the supply powerhouse. But why the demand outside China? Why are people in the U.S. or Europe suddenly burning this stuff?
It's a really interesting mix of things driving that foreign interest. It started, naturally, with overseas Chinese communities. Immigrants brought their traditions with them, including ancestor veneration, setting up markets in Chinatowns.
Makes sense, keeping the traditions alive abroad.
Then you layer on simple cultural curiosity, that sort of exotic appeal of Eastern practices, especially around death and the afterlife, which often seem mysterious to Westerners.
Like when those paper offerings ended up in French museums as art.
Exactly. That shows how they're seen as intriguing, unique cultural objects.
So tradition, curiosity. What else?
The game changer, arguably, has been social media.
TikTok and YouTube.
Absolutely. Platforms like those have massively boosted the visibility of Joss paper, especially under a new name, Ancestor money.
Ancestor money. Okay, that sounds more accessible.
Much more accessible to a Western audience, yeah. Influencers share tutorials, personal stories, often framing it less about traditional ancestor care and more about, like, manifesting good luck, attracting wealth, solving problems.
So it's being rebranded. Less about filial piety, more about personal gain. Burn this, get rich.
That's definitely part of the narrative you see online, though, we should be a bit cautious. Some of that buzz might just be influencers chasing views, not necessarily reflecting widespread, deep adoption of the traditional practice.
Right. Got to consider the source.
But we definitely see this transformation happening. The original meaning providing for ancestors often shifts. It becomes about seeking personal well-being, making wishes, praying for luck, or even just as a way to process emotions.
Like emotional release.
Yeah. You read anecdotes online, people claiming they got money unexpectedly or a job offer, or just felt peace after burning ancestor money.
So it becomes almost like a spiritual self-help tool.
Yeah.
Burn paper, feel better, maybe get lucky.
In some interpretations, yes. And people are integrating it into their own spiritual practices, maybe alongside crystals or tarot cards.
Mixing and matching traditions.
Right. And for some, the ritual itself provides comfort, a connection to loved ones, a sense of doing something, a way to remember. Regardless of belief in the afterlife mechanics, we heard about people burning paper salmon for a dead cat, or paper LV bags for a daughter who passed away before she could own one.
Okay, that's actually quite moving. It taps into that universal human need to grieve and show love tangibly.
It really does. And that term, ancestor money, is key. It simplifies everything, directly links burning to potential ancestral help, much easier to grasp than Joss paper.
Yeah, Joss paper sounds a bit obscure.
Some also think the structured ritual itself, the act of burning, might fill an emotional need for expressing grief that maybe feels lacking in some simpler Western customs.
Interesting point. So it's not just copying, it's active adaptation, reinterpretation. People are molding it to fit their own need.
Precisely. It's not passive imitation. It's a dynamic process. The original meanings get blended with or even replaced by Western ideas. It shows how fluid culture can be. And again, that English term ancestor money seems really crucial in making it click for Western audiences. We have a table summarizing these drivers, too.
Fascinating stuff, but surely this isn't all smooth sailing. Burning paper money, afterlife banks. Feels like there could be some controversy, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely friction points. Domestically, within China itself, there's a long-standing debate.
About what?
Whether burning joss paper is a valuable folk tradition, an important emotional outlet, or if it's basically feudal superstition that should be banned.
Feudal superstition. What's the issue there from a modern angle?
It's seen by some as backward, irrational, maybe promoting unscientific beliefs. It's this tension between preserving cultural heritage and promoting a more, quote-unquote, modern or scientific worldview.
Or real tug-of-war.
Exactly. There are actually official regulations, the funeral management regulations, that technically prohibit feudal superstitious funeral supplies.
Yeah.
But
what counts as feudal superstition isn't clearly defined.
Precisely, which leads to confusion and controversy, like that recent attempt to ban the sale of joss paper in Nantong.
So how do supporters push back?
They argue it's not about literal belief for many people today. It's about remembrance, showing gratitude, connecting with ancestors. Part of a whole belief system about life, death, rebirth. They distinguish it from superstition aimed at, like, getting rich quick in this life.
So the intent matters. Honoring the past versus trying to manipulate the future.
That's the key distinction proponents make. Then you have the very real environmental concerns.
Oh, the smoke.
Yeah, large-scale burning creates air pollution. And there's always a fire risk, especially in dry areas or cities.
Right.
This has led to official campaigns promoting civilized worship, basically suggesting alternatives like offering flowers or online memorials.
Okay. But isn't it kind of ironic? Cracking down domestically while it's being exported.
Huge irony there. Restricting it at home while it finds new markets abroad. Definitely mixed signals.
What about legal stuff? I feel like I heard something about fake money.
That's a big one. Making and selling joss paper designed to look very much like real currencies, US dollars, euros, even RMB.
That sounds risky.
It is. Most countries have laws against counterfeiting or unauthorized reproduction of currency designs. So producers selling dollar joss paper or euro joss paper for export are operating in a bit of a legal gray area.
Walking a fine line.
Definitely. And get this, there have even been reports of police using joss paper as props in sting operations against actual financial fraud.
You are kidding me. Fake spirit money used to catch real crooks. Wow.
Truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. Then there's the whole cultural interpretation issue.
How so?
A practice with deep roots can get misunderstood, trivialized, maybe just turned into entertainment when it crosses cultures. Some social media trends might lean that way.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it's not always positive, even within Chinese culture. There are instances where joss paper is used negatively, like as a way to curse or intimidate someone.
Ooh, okay, so it has a darker side too.
It can. It's complex.
Yeah.
And on the business side, there was this company, Guangdong Yixiang Folk Culture Co.
What about them?
They focus on overseas Chinese markets, mainly Southeast Asia. And back in 2015, they actually tried to get listed on a Chinese stock exchange, the new third board. They were dubbed China's first joss paper stock.
Whoa, a publicly traded joss paper company.
They tried. It shows the potential scale and ambition in the industry, though it seems their listing attempt ultimately didn't succeed.
Still, China's first joss paper stock.
No.
Wild. But it highlights those contradictions again, right? Domestic restrictions, environmental worries, but also companies trying to scale up and capitalize globally.
Absolutely. It's this tangled mix. Tradition, commerce, regulation, cultural sensitivities, all interacting. And making those localized USD or EUR versions shows adaptability, but pushes right into those tricky legal zones, market opportunity versus regulatory risk.
What a journey through the spiritual paper trail. Let's try and wrap this up. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, I think we've clearly seen the deep, deep cultural roots in ancestor veneration. Miba's Huang village undeniably stands out as this central, almost global hub for production.
Yeah, that concentration is key.
Right. And while that 100 million profit figure for export specifically seems hard to verify, the massive price markups online show there's definitely serious money being made in the international trade.
Someone's profiting.
Right.
Even if it's not just the villagers.
Exactly. And the foreign demand. It's this fascinating mix. Diaspora keeping traditions, cultural curiosity, social media buzz with ancestor money, and this very personal reinterpretation of the rituals.
Plus all the controversies swirling around it.
Absolutely. The domestic debates, tradition versus superstitions, the environmental impact, the legal tightrope with currency lookalikes. It's complex.
So this niche product is actually a window into huge global trends, isn't it?
Totally. It forces you to think about how culture travels, how rituals become commodities, how traditions change or get adapted in a globalized world. Questions about cultural exchange, appropriation, commercialization, they're all packed in there.
So what's next? Crystal ball time. Paper NFTs for the digital afterlife.
Maybe not NFTs just yet. But seriously, there are challenges. More regulation, maybe changing attitudes, potential competitors popping up.
But opportunities too.
For sure. The niche market could keep growing. Product innovation is key. Maybe more eco-friendly paper, perhaps exploring digital offerings somehow, and really tailoring things to specific foreign market tastes.
Eco-friendly ghost money. I like it.
Ultimately, this whole joss paper export story is just a really compelling case study. Niche markets, cultural adaptation, tradition meeting modern commerce, and global flows. Even if some claims are exaggerated, the phenomenon itself is real and economically significant, especially for Miba's Huang.
Okay, so for you, still listening and processing all this, here's that final thought to chew on. Building on everything we've discussed, what does this whole fascinating journey of joss paper really tell us about globalization itself, about how culture becomes a product, and about that deep, enduring human need we all seem to have to connect with our past and maybe with the unknown? Lots to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.